The member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Speaker. Indeed, a pleasure to stand and speak on Bill 7, the Better Business Climate Act, also known as the Act to enact the Burden Reduction Reporting Act and the Partnerships for Jobs and Growth Act. It was all introduced, I believe, by the Minister of Economic Development, Employment and Infrastructure way back on July 7th during that wonderful summer sitting we also very much enjoyed, Speaker. Now, I thought long and hard about this bill, all 6 pages of it, Speaker, and I had a brief chance to review what some of the members have said about this bill in the debate leading up to my time here this afternoon. And listening to the members here this afternoon, I tried to understand what impact this bill would have on the businesses in my great riding of Windsor-Tecumseh, and of course to the corporations that we have there, the big ones. So let me tell you, Speaker, I want to tell you a tale. It's not a tale about 2 cities, although I suppose I could start with the words of Mr. Dickens: it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. But, Speaker, that was 1775, and not today, 240 years later in Ontario. And let me tell you, not a tale of 2 cities, but of 2 neighboring jurisdictions, Ontario and the state of Michigan. Both jurisdictions are heavily involved in the automotive industry. Speaker, reporters and editorial writers at my home newspaper, the Windsor Star, spend a great deal of their time writing about the automotive industry. As you know, Speaker, what you read on a daily basis can shape your opinion, especially, of course, around election time. So when we discuss the 6-page proposed Bill 7, when we discuss partnerships and jobs and growth, let's spend a little more focus on automotive jobs and the growth potential of the automotive industry. Speaker, here's what Michigan has done to preserve, protect, and grow its automotive industry. Ann Jarvis, in a front-page story in the Windsor Star about a week and a half ago, says Michigan is serious about the automotive industry. The governor, Rick Snyder, created an automotive industry office. He appointed a very experienced automotive specialist, a special advisor, and Speaker, he gets a monthly briefing. The governor gets a monthly briefing from the special advisor on the automotive industry. Michigan, unlike Ontario, Michigan has developed a 30-year plan that capitalizes on emerging trends in vehicle design, technology, and materials, and it tracks drivers, Speaker, and the changing demographics of drivers. So, Speaker, the results, and these are the results that speak to the aspirations, if you will, of Bill 7. Michigan, in the past 4 years, has attracted 1/4 of all automotive investment in North America. 1/4 of every dollar that's been invested in North America's automotive industry has gone to the state of Michigan. Speaker, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but right now Michigan assembles more vehicles than Ontario. Sad but true. When Michigan saw themselves losing automotive production, losing investment, according to Tony Ferrier, a good friend of mine who works at the University of Windsor, he's an expert in the field. He's the co-director of the Office of Automotive Vehicle Research at the University of Windsor. Michigan drew a line in the sand, Speaker. Mr. Ferrier says they clearly didn't want to lose more production and investment. They fought to bring investment back. You talk about a success story. There was a Chrysler plant in Sterling Heights that was slated to close. Instead, $1 billion was invested. General Motors, nearly $500 million went their way, opening the possibility of a second shift at one of the plants. Michigan stamping plants benefited R&D and a lightweight materials research center. Speaker, Bill 7 can make these examples a reality in Ontario if the will is there. We can have the best of times again, Speaker, if we use our wisdom and not follow a foolish path to nowhere. I know the minister will tell us that he has a plan, that the government has invested $800 million in Ontario's automotive industry over the past 11 years, and I know the federal government has ponied up money as well, Speaker. But let me digress for a moment. In this morning's Globe and Mail, there's an article by Barry McKenna. He writes about one of the federal funds that we're talking about here. This is a fund, Speaker, from Ottawa's budget of a year ago, 2013. There was $200 million set aside in the 2013 budget to spark innovation in Ontario's hard-hit manufacturing sector. That's the sort of best of times kind of an announcement, right? But Speaker, here's the worst of times kind of thing about that fund. From that budget in 2013, Mr. McKenna tells us 18 months later, Ottawa has yet to approve a single project from its advanced manufacturing fund. Well, Speaker, that was revealed after the NDP industry critic Peggy Nash put forward a written question to see what the government was doing with our money. There's no wisdom in that kind of a government fund, but a lot of foolishness, if you want to ask me about it. Now here's a fund, Speaker, intended to pay for large-scale, transformative manufacturing activities as well as to encourage commercialization and to spur the adoption of cutting-edge technology. Now some parties can talk a good game, make a headline or two, but never spend the money for which it was intended or delay spending the money that was budgeted for. And do you think the ministry or the industry doesn't notice, Speaker? Of course the industry notices when that sort of thing happens. You put the money in the budget, you never release it. So getting back to what I was saying about the better plans in Michigan, Speaker, neither Ontario or Ottawa have recouped anything close to what Michigan has. And the sad part of it all, Speaker, is that the experts, the automotive analysts, say Ontario is being left behind. That's why this bill is so important. This bill can be a game changer with the right improvements. It is essential that we recognize, no matter what side of the House we're on today, that around the globe, and the auto industry is truly a global industry, around the globe, Auto Assembly investment rose more than 9% to $17.6 billion last year, but Speaker, Canada didn't reap any of that investment, any of it. I expect the minister will assure us that just recently he and the Premier announced $86 million, or 10% of the new money planned for the Honda plant in Allison, Speaker. And to that I say, thank you. From this side of the House, thank you for that money. Thank you for that money in Alliston. But while that secures the future of that plant and the existing jobs in Alliston, and that is important, don't get me wrong, it doesn't grow the industry, Speaker. Bill 7 talks about the partnerships for jobs and growth. Speaker, a short history lesson. Last spring, Chrysler Canada was in discussions with the government about growth at the Windsor Assembly plant. You remember that, I'm sure you do, we all do. The former leader of the Conservative Party made headlines when he called any provincial investment at the Windsor plant corporate welfare. That prompted Chrysler's Sergio Marchionne to walk away from those discussions, saying they had become a political football and he wanted no part of it. But Speaker, the scary thing about that experience is the warning that Mr. Marchionne, who by the way is one of the most highly regarded, respected visionaries in the automotive industry today. In walking away from those discussions about the provincial partnership with the long-term growth plan for the Windsor Assembly Plant, Mr. Marchione said Ontario and Canada have to decide if they want to be a part of the global auto industry in the future, because he said it, and these are his words, words to heed, words to take to heart, Speaker. He said, we, the Ontario government and the feds in Ottawa, don't appear to be working hard to attract investment. I find that a very scary indictment, Speaker. We have a short-term investment plan for the Windsor Assembly Plant, but because of the way that deal was bungled, there is no long-term plan. No 30-year plan like they have in Michigan, Speaker. And that should scare us all. The Michigan plan created a one-stop office to cut the red tape, to assist industry investors to navigate the myriad of government agencies and regulators. And Speaker, it established another Michigan priority, expanding the skilled trades base through education and training. So when the new plants relocate to Michigan, the skilled talent is there to fill the jobs. This was a really good article by Ann Jarvis, Speaker. I think the ministry staff should check it out if they haven't already done so. And I know some skeptics on the other side may well say we can't compete with jurisdictions, especially those in Mexico and some of the southern states, because of the incentives they throw at the feet of the industry decision makers. But Speaker, Ontario and Michigan have other attributes, other advantages. Having the right talent, the skilled workforce, the engineers, having the right supply chain, being geographically located, these are all highly rated, Speaker, as well as what could be improved in this bill. Speaker, the minister has the ability, his hand is on the button. He can press that button. He can improve this bill. He can save the Ontario automotive industry. Instead of sitting on that button, he can get off his butt and make amendments to Bill 7 and get Ontario's automotive industry back on track. Indeed, Speaker, Ontario's manufacturing industry can be put back on the rails. We need a real policy, a Made in Ontario automotive strategy. We need a Made in Canada automotive policy. But if Ottawa won't lead, then Ottawa should follow or get out of the way and let Ontario take over. Let Ontario restore to greatness our manufacturing industry, our automotive industry. It's within this bill to make that happen, Speaker, if, and only if, the Liberal government will follow Michigan's example and get serious about a 30-year plan. The government can say they have a plan. The minister can tell us again about his dedicated automotive unit and about its staff dedicated to attracting foreign investment, about the $2.5 billion in Prosperity Fund and the Southwest Development Fund. But Speaker, where are the jobs? Where's the future growth? And where are the results, the determination? Mr. Marchione doesn't think much of what Ontario brings to the table, what Canada brings to the table. This is a global industry. We need visionaries. We need people to think outside of the box. In an editorial on November the 15th, Speaker, the Windsor Star concluded, whatever fuzzy, inarticulated game plan Ottawa